be my objective to phase out Social Security,
Nice.
to pull it up by the roots and get rid of it. People who advise me politically always tell me that's dangerous, and I tell them, in that case, it's not worth my running. That's why I'm doing this, to get rid of that. Medicare and Medicaid are of the same sort and need to be pulled up.
Not taking anyone off of what they paid into so far. But there is some waste, abuse, and fraud in Medicare that we can take those numbers back and add to our general coffers and our Treasury. And on the front end on Social Security, I think there's a way when people are living longer, they're retiring later, that on the front end we can move that retirement age back a little bit.
We got to bring the Democrats in and talk about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. There's hundreds of billions of dollars to be saved, and we know how to do it. We just have to have the stomach to actually take those challenges on.
And the founders warned us, you got to keep these things under constraint. Or
this
else...
is an existential threat? Is it your view this is an
absolutely.
To our American way of life?
Absolutely, yeah. Our whole form of government.
Nothing is sacrosanct. Nothing. They're going to put everything on the table.
That's what they told lawmakers. Everything is on the table, and that includes Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
John Thune, who is the Senate incoming Republican leader, who also met with Elon Musk this morning, told me that perhaps mandatory programs are areas that they are looking to make cuts in, like Social Security, for example.
Now that Republicans are set to control our lives for at least the next 2 years, well, they've gone all in on reviving one of their favorite lines of attack: eliminating Social Security and other social benefit programs under the guise of fiscal conservatism. But as Representative Katie Porter points out,
this is how much Social Security adds to our national deficit. Zero. Nothing. Social Security is not debt financed. In fact, by law, you cannot use debt spending to fund Social Security. And in fact, we currently have over $2.9 trillion surplus. So, do we need to think about how to make Social Security as strong and as viable for future generations as we can? Absolutely. But it is nuts to try to blame Social Security and blame working Americans who pay for the program and suggest that Social Security is in any way responsible for the national debt.
It doesn't get much simpler than that. Social Security funds itself through people like us paying into it. It has nothing to do with the debt our country takes on to fund other programs. It has everything to do with people like this perceiving any money spent by the government to benefit the greater public as undeserved entitlements that only a small club of people should be able to have access to.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Entitlements ever be on your plate?
At some point they will be, and at the right time we will take a look at that. You know, that's actually the easiest of all things if you look, because it's such a big
willing
percentage.
to do some of
If you don't cut something in entitlements, you'll never really deal with the debt.
We'll be cutting, but we're also going to have growth like you've never had before.
You changed your outlook on how to handle entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mr. President. It seems like something has to be done, or else we're going to be stuck at 120% of debt to GDP forever.
So first of all, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting.
You've tapped Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, to head up this Department of Government Efficiency.
Correct.
Which proposes cuts to the federal government. I think a lot of people hear that and they get concerned about Medicare and Social Security and
Not
Medicaid
going to have anything to do.
and defense spending. You won't touch Medicare, Social Security.
Abuse, fraud.
Okay.
No, I said to people, we're not touching Social Security, other than we might make it more efficient, but the people are going to get what they're getting.
Okay, so the entitlements
And
off
we're not
the
raising,
table.
and we're not raising ages or any of that stuff.
Okay,
No,
off the table.
I won't do it.
You know, regardless of how he's trying to spin it now, you can't trust the Republican Party to protect Social Security and other spending programs because it's directly contradictory to their never-ending crusade to strip the government down for parts and sell them off to the highest private bidder. Now, that shouldn't be a controversial opinion because it's the logical end of a small government, pro-private business political party. But you'll never hear that on cable news because those networks are, well, they're beholden to the same small club of oligarchs, if you will, trying to privatize every aspect of our daily lives that they can. And the saddest and frankly scariest part of this racket is that many Republican voters fall for the culture war distractions meant to keep them from recognizing this reality.
he's a godly man. He's working for God, for darn sure. Number two, he really cares about us. He cares about us. He cares about what happens to us. He cares about our country. He didn't come in there because he wanted the money. He's got money. He's coming there because he is actually working for God, and he wants to help us, and he wants to get us to he wants to make America great again. And I it's true. But I think he's going to make it even greater, because I don't think, no matter what they try to do to stop him, he's going to come back, because he's working for God and God's on his side.
Says what goes woke goes broke.
Says everything woke turns to and what does that mean?
Well, actually, you want to read it again?
Everything woke turns to.
You like it?
What is woke to you?
What is woke to you?
Well, I'm asking you because you're wearing the shirt.
It's anti-white. You know that.
Woke is anti-white?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I work construction, yeah.
Does it bother you that Trump famously didn't pay a lot of his construction employees?
Who?
In Atlantic City, a lot of the people who worked on his casinos, people lost their livelihoods.
Says who?
The people.
It's just known people.
It is a known thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I'm sure they deserved it.
It is so unbelievably infuriating to see so many people who have infinitely more in common with each other than Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies. But when the opposition party offers little to nothing in terms of improving someone else's material living conditions, constantly fails to live up to their promises, and remains beholden to the same moneyed interest as the Republicans, we really can't be too surprised.
They're going to destroy Social Security because millions of people are coming onto our country, and they're putting them on Social Security. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on all of our things. They're destroying it. They are destroying Social Security.
Are you retired?
No, I'm still working.
You're still working. Would you like to be retired?
Of course.
Of course. When do you think you can actually fully retire?
When I'm 6 feet under.
Republican claims that they don't want to cut benefits don't match the Republican House's actions. The current Republican Study Committee budget, representing 80% of House Republicans, has proposed cutting $1.5 trillion of Social Security benefits over the next 10 years. It would reduce the benefit formula and raise the retirement age to 69, which would especially hurt low-income retirees. But let's say that Social Security benefit cuts really are off the table. If cuts are truly off the table, then that leaves only one other option to prevent insolvency: raise revenue. There is no third option. And that means it's time to get to work identifying smart, fair ways to raise revenue, fund the Social Security Trust Fund, and preserve and protect benefits. Fortunately, there are solutions that would both extend Social Security solvency indefinitely with zero benefit cuts and make our tax system fairer, like my Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act. Right now, the cap on Social Security contributions means that if you're a CEO making $10 million a year, you only pay into Social Security for the first week of your paycheck. A school teacher or a nurse, however, will pay into the program with every single paycheck. That just isn't fair. My Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act would fix that by requiring contributions to Social Security on all wages above $400,000. Further, people living off of non-wage income make no Social Security contributions. That's not fair either, and my bill would also fix that. Those making more than $400,000 in investment income would contribute just like those who are working. These reforms raise enough revenue to make Social Security, and by the way, Medicare too, solvent indefinitely as far as the...
There are solutions to the problems that currently exist with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other social programs, but they require elected officials who are motivated to fix them. The reality is that Republicans have no motivation to solve these problems because, well, their ultimate goal is to phase out and eventually eliminate these institutions altogether. That's why they keep pushing the same privatization schemes over and over. They're not looking to preserve these programs. They're looking to dismantle them entirely.
The most opportunistic Republicans have spent so long attacking our government that now Republicans don't even trust each other. But that's what the opportunists wanted: a weak Congress, a weak IRS. It's what they call smart government. But in reality, it's a federal government that can't serve its people.
At the House Oversight Committee, that was California Democrat Katie Porter ripping Republicans for their war against the Internal Revenue Service. Republicans have been hammering the IRS for decades, and it got very pronounced during the Obama administration. Porter described the effort as death by 1,000 cuts, and she added that the GOP actions have long been dishonest and cheap.
Look, I know that the agency that collects our taxes isn't easy to love. Believe me, opportunistic politicians know that too. So they go on TV and they give the IRS a verbal slash, falsely suggesting to the American people that the IRS is spying on us, targeting us for our political beliefs, or going after us to pay more money than we owe. What a bunch of BS.
And that BS has had a significant impact on IRS budget funding. Thanks to Republican attacks on the IRS and the political pressure on Democrats, Congress has repeatedly slashed the IRS budget. The budget cuts mean there are now 20% fewer IRS employees than worked for the agency 15 years ago, even though the number of taxpayers in the United States has grown. Also, in the next few years, the IRS will need 52,000 new employees just to meet the agency's needs. Oh, and by the way, remember when Republicans complained about the IRS targeting conservatives? Well, the IRS spent $20 million responding to that Republican congressional investigation and turned over to Congress more than 1 million documents. And the Republican claims turned out to be nonsense. Still, the IRS continues to be an easy target, and it makes all of us suffer.
When we need help with our taxes and no one is available at the IRS to pick up the phone, blame a politician who slashed the IRS budget. When we want the IRS to make tax filing easier or work harder to make our information more secure, but the IRS can't invest in technology with adequate cybersecurity, blame a politician who slashed the IRS. When we pay our fair share of taxes and just want the IRS to make sure billionaires do the same, but they don't have the staff or the resources to do it, blame a politician who slashed the IRS. Our current House Republican majority has too many of these politicians who love to slash government institutions to their breaking points.
But breaking the IRS and other government agencies seems to be the Republican goal. You see, Republicans hate government and think it should be much smaller if it exists at all. So by defunding and cutting government agencies, the GOP gets to eliminate the ability of the government to do its job. Likewise, the GOP hates taxes. And when Republicans cannot pass tax cuts through Congress, because giving tax breaks to the rich is unpopular with voters, well, Republicans take another approach. They eliminate the ability of the IRS to collect taxes or audit the rich or catch people who underpay. And the rest of us who are playing by the rules have to suffer the consequences. The U.S. Treasury, which funds government services, takes in less money than taxpayers owe, thereby squeezing government spending on all kinds of things. The ability of all of us to deal with the IRS, fill out the correct forms, and file on time becomes more difficult, and it all becomes one vicious circle. The IRS seems broken. We can't stand the experience, so Congress hammers and tortures the IRS even more. Well, here's an idea. The next time Congress proposes increasing the U.S. military budget, let's make it dependent on Congress producing all the money that the IRS needs to collect money from taxpayers. In other words, if the IRS doesn't have the staffing or the budget to do its job, the Department of Defense will not get an increase in staffing or budgets. The fact is, when the IRS cannot collect the taxes as the law is written, our government has less money to spend on things like national defense. Indeed, keeping the IRS efficient and fair is a matter of national security, although that logic may be too advanced for many congressional Republicans. By the way, Trump MAGA supporters are also not known for deep thinking, and that was on display recently when we interviewed some MAGA faithful in New Hampshire.
For one, you're talking to someone there that was there on January 6th. He didn't try to overthrow the election, okay? What he tried to do was the legal way, and what actually happened was the staged coup that took place on January 6th so that they could take the electoral powers to actually certify the election.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.